And we are live. Cool. Welcome to this dev meeting, Keptn dev meeting. Again, we have a couple of cool news to share and also a couple of PRs to review. And I think I don't want to waste that much time. I want to just hand over to Florian because Florian is the first one in the agenda and is giving us an overview of his PRs that he did this week.
All right, thank you, Johannes. Let me just share my screen really quickly. All right, can you see my screen?
Perfect.
Perfect. Today I want to show you two pull requests. Both are related once again to the manual approval story. And let's just jump right into it. So the first PR is for approving open approvals via the CLI, and this works as follows. So what I've done in this request, or in this pull request, I've added the Keptn get event approval.triggered command, which does exactly what the name tells you. So if you remember, we now have those approval triggered events, which, as the name suggests, trigger manual approval process. And now if you type in the following into the CLI, for example, Keptn get event approval.triggered for the project workshop and stage staging, you will get a happy little approval.triggered event where I have all the required information, like in this case the tag and the image that's to be approved, that's relevant here. And what you will also need in order to further progress in this manual approval workflow is the ID of exactly that event. That's also being returned here. And now, if you want to approve this request, you can also use the CLI and say Keptn send event approval finished. Actually, like it is here. Yeah, you can say Keptn send event approval finished. Then again specify the project and the stage and the ID of the approval.triggered event, and then it will send the approval finished event, and after that this will be received by the gatekeeper service, and this will trigger the further deployment of your artifact. What the gatekeeper will also do is it will check if the approval.finished event contains the required tag and image for the correlating approval.triggered event. All right, and are there any questions about that feature?
Not about the feature. I have a question. Not about the feature itself, but about displaying the approval triggered event. Mm-hmm. Yeah, here you are showing the payload that is coming back. This is a kind of open question to the group. Would it make sense to display this information in a table? I mean, where just see the ID in the first column and then in the second column the image and the tag?
Yeah, in that case it would make sense. It would be a viable extension to this command to have this.
Okay, then as a follow-up issue, we can even think of an interactive way to approve this, but this was clearly not the scope of this issue.
That's true. But that's true. Yeah, it was not scope of the issue, and I would also go with a follow-up issue on that one. Andreas, as you mentioned, to provide a maybe interactive way to approve it.
Florian, can you scroll to the right on the approval finished? Scroll by, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So what is exactly checked then? You mentioned you're checking the image. Can you explain this in more detail, please?
Yeah, sure. So actually, this is hidden from the user in that case. If you send the approval.finished event via the CLI, because the CLI will use exactly the properties of the approval.triggered event. So it will take the image that's being specified here and tag as well, and include that into the approval.finished event. However, if you want to use the API in order to directly send the event to Keptn, you have to set the payload of the event by yourself, obviously, because you can specify anything there. And the gatekeeper service will then check if those properties are set correctly. So for example, if you have a approval.triggered event with the tag 0, 10, 1, and then use the API to send the approval triggered event with the tag set to 0 x.y, the gatekeeper will reject that because the tags do not match in that case.
And another question, why is the service name not needed in the approval finished? So internally, is it a collection containing all services, or how do you?
The service is not needed in that case because you refer to the ID of exactly this approval.triggered event.
Oh, okay. And using the ID, I can find the right collection.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. And the other issue I want to show you is actually also part of this story and was a requirement for implementing the get approval triggered feature and the send approval finished feature of the CLI, and that's the exposure of the MongoDB Datastore via the API. So let me just open this pull request. So what I've done here is I've made the MongoDB Datastore service that previously was only reachable from within the Keptn cluster. I've now made it available via the Keptn API, so the CLI can use this API in order to retrieve all the relevant events for that use case. Because previously we had a kind of a slimmed down endpoint directly in the API, which allowed you to fetch single events for a certain Keptn context, and that wasn't flexible enough for it in that case, because if we go again to this CLI extension PR, we see that we here need to specify the project and the stage, and in that case we do not have the Keptn context, which was the only parameter the old API was accepting. All right, and that's everything I wanted to show you today. Thank you.
Thanks, Florian. As I mentioned, I will take it on my agenda to write the follow-up issue for the table of the CLI command, or for the get approval and the output in a table format.
Would you really propose to make this in a table or directly interactive?
Let's discuss this on the issue that I will write down. Yeah, I agree. I think it's not a good user experience when someone has to copy paste the ID and then use it to send the approval finished event. And I think we should provide a more convenient way to do this with one command and with an interactive approach.
Yeah,
right.
Thank you. I think next turn is mine. Since this was a short week and many changes happened under the hood, I have only one issue that only one pull request that I wanted to show you. It's about the environment screen that we introduced last week about the details, so showing stage details in the environment screen. The request was to enhance this view, and I will show you a live demo. When you click on the environment screen, you now have an overview of your stages as you had before, but you can also click on a stage and then you can see the services that are deployed in this stage with the information which image is deployed and when it was deployed in this stage. And you also have the, if it's available, the deployment URI, the public deployment URI available here. So with a single click, you can access that service. That's nice because now you can directly jump into your staging or production stage and check your deployment there. So you have the link to your current deployment. That's actually from my side, since the other changes in the bridge have been regards the public API. So the bridge is now consuming the public API, and that's something that haven't changed anything in the bridge visually, but just under a hood.
Cool. Ermin, can you go back to the bridge, please?
Yes.
Because I think we should mention that in the mockup or in the wireframe, we did not include the button to go to the deployed service. But I really like this idea because it directly forwards you to the service itself. And additionally, you also added the deployed at timestamp. Question to the group: what do you think about the deployed at timestamp? Does it make sense, or is it a good idea to have it there?
I think it's one of the most important information in a deployment tool to know when is this version deployed. So I really like it.
Yeah, I think it works.
But maybe we can make it a little bit, so also add image column so that we have a common format.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You don't always have you don't always have the image, obviously. Don't forget that. It's one of the, you haven't been there last week. Rob mentioned that. So we need to make sure this, the artifact that we're deploying is as generic as possible. So for us, it should really be a string and not an image.
And let's call it artifact column.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is the most generic word for something to get deployed.
Yeah, we could also add the label there so that it fits better. And yeah, those are information that we haven't considered in the mockup, but once you start creating the view, you see all the data that you have available there, and that's something what I thought would be a good use case, that you can directly jump into your stage and click to your deployment, to the public deployment URI. Thank you very much for the feedback. If that's all, I'm handing over to Christian.
Thank you. So I've been working on issue 1777, which was to basically check the Kubernetes support matrix starting from 1.14 to 1.18 for our current master branch of Keptn. And so far, a couple of things already have happened. Like we've added testing for GKE 1.16 last week. We also have added testing for the Keptn control plane, so the install optional use case quality gates on various versions of Minikube. And I'm still working on that issue, but there is some smaller artifacts that I can show you again in terms of pull requests. The first one is that we've increased the, that we've removed or adapted the version check in the installer or in the install CLI to now only check for platforms that are not equal to OpenShift. But if the platform is not equal to OpenShift, then we just check our version requirements here. This is different from what it used to be before, because before we did check this requirement only when we were installing the all use cases options, so the default option of the installer. Now we're checking this for all of them because Keptn seems to be working on all versions of Kubernetes of our support matrix right now. The second pull request is also regarding the matrix. I've increased the test matrix for micro Kubernetes just to show some code. Essentially, I've used the same approach that I used with Minikube. I think I've shown that last week. I have a template here now in our Travis CI YAML, and by default, we're testing micro Kubernetes version 1.16. And by inheriting from that template or by using that template, I can override the version and just use different micro Kubernetes versions. If you're wondering about the version syntax here, I'll scroll down and you might see why this is happening. We're using that in the channel of our snap install command, and the channel of micro Kubernetes. Basically, I've added a link here, but you can go there and you can see which channels are available. And 1.17 stable is basically the last 1.17 version that's marked as stable by micro Kubernetes. And all of that results in a build matrix. I know there is an error in that, so I'll have to dig into that later, but basically we now have a build matrix that tests Minishift, which is only available in one version as far as I know, or at least in one that we support, because that one is Minishift for OpenShift 3.11. Then we have micro Kubernetes in the three mentioned versions, and then we have our Minikube tests in all of these versions. And with all of that, basically, we now have a very nice build scenario for our master branch that keeps testing whether we still are supporting the correct Kubernetes versions. But what is still missing, and I've documented it in the issue, is testing Kubernetes 1.17 and Kubernetes 1.18 with the full installation, so with Helm and Istio. I haven't managed to do that yet. That's still on my list.
Christian, I have a question to Travis. So is there no limit on parallel jobs?
There is a limit on parallel jobs. Sometimes you don't hit that limit. For instance, like here, this whole build for micro Kubernetes took 20 minutes and these were executed in parallel. Yeah. But for the Minikube standalone, these took 40 minutes, whereas each of them is around 20 minutes. So I guess the limit is about 3 to 4 jobs in parallel. At some point we will have to ditch some of the tests, I guess, because, well, let's just face it, we don't need to test every single version every time, but we can select maybe 3, maybe the lowest one, the highest one, and one in the middle to verify that we're still good. But with 3 tests in parallel, this seems to be working fine.
Cool. Thanks.
Also, just to be fair, I mean, before anyone is saying, hey, Keptn is using all the resources on Travis, when we are calling tests here, this is not like being 100% CPU and 100% memory usage. This is really lightweight CPU and memory usage. It just takes some time because there's a lot of network traffic involved. There's a lot of checks involved. There are a lot of sleep statements involved. So yeah. All right. it's also just been a short week for me, so I don't have anything more than that. And I think as Christian Heckelmann is not here, I'll hand back to Johannes.
All right. Okay. I have no issue to discuss this week, but I will give you an update on the roadmap. I mean, every second or third week, I will do that so that everybody is aligned and knows what the team is currently working on. And just let me use this slide. Yeah, I showed you this slide 2-3 weeks ago, and the core team is doing really good progress on working on the use cases that drive the Keptn 0.7 version. As we saw today, we now can get the approvals by using the CLI and also approving them by sending the approval event. And we also are making good progress in regard to the Keptn bridge for supporting the manual approval scenario. And the next use case that we are tackling for 0.7 is the use case around self-healing with custom remediation providers. And this use case is currently in the status of backlog refinement. And what does this mean? Just let me jump over. Going forward, I will also maintain and will maintain the roadmap of Keptn in a roadmap Kanban board. This one you will find when you go to Keptn organization. Then there is a projects tab. When you click on that one, then you see the roadmap. It's a public project. And here you see a Kanban board for the Keptn releases. And the best way to read this Kanban board is from the right to the left, because here we can see that this issue or this use case for 0.7 is done. It's the use case about exposing the Keptn's bridge and using the CLI and also providing basic authentication.
Correct me if I'm wrong. This would be 6.2.
Correct. Yeah, we delivered that one with 0.62.
Okay.
That's true.
But never mind.
No, thanks. I will update that. Currently in progress is the Keptn Enhancement Proposal 10, which is all about the CLI enhancements for retrieving Keptn status information. And the second one is the delivery assistant. Please don't get confused. This is a kind of renaming of the manual approval scenario. And here you see the benefit that the user gets out of that use case and also the spec change that goes along with this user story. And let me now come back to the self-healing use case. As I mentioned, or as I said, this one is in the status of backlog refinement. And here again, you see a note with a title of the use case and then on the benefit and the advantage for an end user. And further down, oops, what did I do? Well, what happened? No, I moved it there. Now it's back. Further down, you see two references. One is to the Keptn enhancement proposal for this use case, and the second one is for the spec change that is required for implementing this use case. We as a Keptn team, we just use this way to provide a public place to discuss use cases and enhancements. And please feel free to take a look at the Keptn enhancement proposal, which is a kind of explanation of the use case from an end user perspective. And there is also the spec change that then corresponds to the cloud events or to the specifications that are required to implement this use case. And when you want to take a look into the future, there are also two use cases that will be prepared for the Keptn 0.8 release, but this is not content of today. Now let me go back to the community meeting notes. because here I have written it down. The CAP 09 is about the self-healing use case and providing a new way of specifying remediation actions. This is the CAP. Then we have the spec that specifies everything. And we invested this week a lot of time into breaking this specification or this use case down into concrete tasks. The first one is drawing the event stream of the remediation scenario. And then we have already identified tasks that can be done in order to fulfill this use case. All right, yeah. Then this task, drawing the event stream, we will also mention in a couple of minutes, but for now it's okay. And next to this spec change, there's also a very nice example where the community provided us feedback and proposed a spec change on a problem event. Actually, it was Adam Gardner and Rob who were working on a use case where they required the problem URL in their service they implemented, and they proposed to add the problem URL to the problem event so that they then can have, or they get a backlink to the source of the problem itself, whether it was identified by dynatrace or Prometheus. They can then go back to the source. And based on this spec change, we also derived a concrete task that is already, that can be implemented because it's clear what need to be changed, and it's also laid out what things need to be modified. And I really would like to get this spec change into the master branch, because it is a very nice use case to get the problem URL also for the action providers, because they can then show this URL and also provide a backlink. Who can I ask for giving me a feedback on or a review on this spec change?
Yeah, one of them would be me, and I'm not sure. I think the repository is set up so Alois Reitbauer would be the second one to approve it, I think. I will double check that.
I think I need at least one approval from your side, Christian, and a second approval from someone else.
One approval from code owner, so it's enough if I approve it.
Okay.
Apparently.
Okay. Yeah, as I have written down here in the description of this spec change, it proposes the new optional field of a problem URL, and it also addresses an issue that was identified by Adam because we provided a wrong example of a dynatrace problem. Please don't get confused when you see multiple lines that have changed, because also the example has been adapted.
Okay, I'll take a look at it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Cool. Yep, when this one is merged into the master, then we are ready to implement the spec change in this task. All right, then let me go to the next meeting or a point in the agenda. It's about the architecture for the remediation workflow. Big shout out to Andreas, who also worked on that and gave me good feedback on how we are going to implement the remediation workflow going forward. And this one is actually a task in the working items. It's that one that is under review, ready for review. And it is here. Draw the event stream of a remediation scenario. And when I open it, then you will get here a payload, or not a payload, it's a specification of an event flow. You can open this event flow by using the sequence diagram.org. Just copy and paste it, and at the end you see the event flow that is shown by this PNG, and it explains how Keptn works when a problem is received by Keptn. This can be a problem from Prometheus or Dynatrace, and taking care of the new way of specifying remediation actions, then we can, or this PNG shows you how the services work together and how they are, how they are working, or how the workflow is going on. Going through this event stream is, I think, it's too much for a community meeting, and I would ask you, when you're interested in this workflow, to take a look on that one, and to reach out to myself or to someone else from the core team to get feedback when you have questions regarding the event stream. All right, yeah, but this is the fundamental base to continue working on the self-healing use case, and we are also taking this one as the truth and the basis for going further regarding the self-healing tasks. All right. Okay, then any questions so far? If not, then I can go back to the working items. And
yeah, can you promote Thomas? He just joined as an attendee.
Sure. Yep, Thomas is here. Okay, then yeah, let's go back to the working items. And like we did last week, we are going through the Kanban board of the working items from the right side to the left, and discussing what's still in progress, whether there are blockers or not, and then finally talking about issues that we can assign to someone.
I guess the draw event stream, we can close that, the 1616.
Yep, correct.
Yeah, okay. Because all the others, okay, there's a couple of issues on the bottom that are still open.
Okay, let's see. This one is closed. Send approval. This one is closed. Stream tests. Exposing the event endpoint. This we saw today. Andreas, this is a PR you want to discuss and show us the next time?
I mean, we can all see the result when we are using the CLI, so that's fine for me.
Rect on an approval finished event. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we don't need to discuss it.
Okay. Then here
but we don't need to move the items now. Just wondering, because of the two open issues or non-closed, three non-closed issues, if they are done or not.
Mm-hmm.
I have two in the bridge that are not yet merged, so I will close them as soon as the pull request is merged.
Okay, then let's leave it open as long.
These two guys, use the public API, and then click on a stage. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of those has a broken build, so I have to check on that first. And
and the Keptn Core, the 1658.
1658
Can be closed.
can be closed.
Okay, good.
All right. And the upgrader Christian, this was an issue that a documentation issue that you were working on this
correct.
week. I think we can move it to the column.
It's not worth mentioning it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you can move this one.
Okay. And then we have the two that are open, and the upgrader. Florian, you wanna give us a review about the upgrader next week?
Yeah, I can show it next week.
Okay, then I leave it here in the review column and manage open approval events in a collection.
This one I've shown last week.
Mm-hmm.
Then okay,
Can remember.
Good.
Nice, thanks. Then let's go over to the issues that are in progress. The first one, CLI implement get project service stage and metadata. This one is from Christian Heckelmann. He has an open pull request. And I think, are there already discussions going on regarding his pull request? Oh, he did not link it.
Yeah, Florian has commented on it.
I've looked at it. I had some remarks, and I'm currently in exchange with Christian to provide him with some help on how to implement those remarks.
Cool. Great.
Yeah, Christian said he can't join today, so let's hope he can be there next week and he can present it next week.
Perfect. I'm just linking. Oh, isn't possible?
Yeah, it's not always working, the linking.
Okay.
I think if you, let's deal with that later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the next one is an open issue. Maybe as Thomas is now here, I can ask him. Thomas, that was one that I did by your request, removing the API.Keptn header in Go utils, and I think you did it manually in the CLI. Is that still necessary? Should we go forward with that?
I think we'll need it, yes.
Okay. So there's a couple of things we still need to do, and I'll need to run the tests afterwards, but I think that I will get done on Monday.
Perfect, thank you.
The Kubernetes support, I've talked about it, also work in progress, should be done until the next community meeting.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And the
and the last one
bridge.
is, in the bridge, there are still some unit tests that I'm working on, which I wanted to finish. It's ongoing. But yeah, since I had not the time to look into that this week, it will be next week, I guess.
Okay. Cool. Then we have two that are assigned. It's the first one with the filter mechanism in the list of root events, and the second one is bridge shows wrong duration date for an evaluation done events. I think we discussed these two guys last time, and I think we can skip it. Okay, this brings me now to the last column, which is the backlog. In the backlog, we have 3 bugs. When we follow the bug first approach, we should address them as soon as possible. The first one is Keptn exposing the bridge fails when there is an ingress namespace that is not maintained by Keptn. Actually, I brought this one in by a request from a Keptn user. And the situation is that one, this Keptn user is using Kubernetes cluster. There he installed an Nginx, but not used for Keptn, for another purpose. And then he installed Keptn in a full-fledged manner. And finally, when he wanted to expose the Keptn's bridge, then there was the problem that the implementation of the Keptn API takes a look whether the nginx namespace is there or not. And in case it is, then we are assuming that there is a Keptn ingress. But in this particular case, the namespace is there, but the Keptn ingress not. And this resulted in a failed command, and the user was not able to expose the Keptn's bridge. The fix is pretty straightforward. Referenced the function here that takes a look into which type of ingress is installed and used, and the fix itself is just checking whether the namespace contains the resource that we are looking for. Is someone has someone time to do that?
That one.
Florian?
Yeah, I would like to do it.
Okay.
Florian, please, or actually for everyone to remember, the next community meeting is on Wednesday again, not Thursday. So being that tomorrow is a public holiday and Friday is probably vacation time for many of us, make sure that you have the time until the next community meeting.
You underestimate my power.
No.
Take this now as a
yeah.
Yes. All right. I mean, we can assign it, but when we or when someone cannot make it or cannot implement this till the next meeting, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, this issue I don't see a problem with. I'm sure Florian has this done in 5 minutes, but I just wanted to have this in as a yeah, to remind everyone that there's a public holiday and probably vacation, and it's a short week for this backlog.
All right, Christian, can you explain this one, because you identified it and also provided the
thanks.
Explanation.
I'll actually request access. I think that's easier. Yeah, I can scroll. So I identified an issue with the Keptn's bridge. Essentially, I have added 2 SLOs into my SLO YAML, so number calls other services and number of time calls of other services. And those 2 SLOs I've added, but I did not add them into my SLI provider. So my SLI provider sends back this information, unsupported SLI metric, for number calls other service and for the other one. However, in Keptn's bridge, this information is not shown. And the reason behind this, I've also troubleshooted this a little bit, is because I've added this SLO as status info rather than having it as having it with criteria, with targets, whatever, in my SLO. So this is not shown only for status info. It is, however, shown if the status or if there would be criteria behind it. So this is what it would look like with criteria behind it if there's an error message, and this is what it obviously should look like for those 2 info metrics as well. Although I would not use red, I would use yellow, or maybe don't even use a color, just use the exclamation mark. So essentially the functionality is already there. The color might need to be changed and some if-else statements need to be changed. Any questions regarding that issue? Or, well, anyone open for it to do it?
Yeah, since it's in the bridge, you can assign that one to me.
Johannes, can you do the assigning? I think that's easier because you have the screen.
All right, thanks for giving me control. It is... Nope.
No, it's you had to scroll down. It's in that list, but it's okay. You can do it here too.
All right. Okay. Then we have one about an environment variable configuration service is not evaluated in helm-service. Thomas, you brought that one up, right?
Yes.
Yep.
There's the problem that the configuration variable for an environment variable for the configuration service URL exists, but this the value which is passed there is not passed through to the method which uses the configuration service, and furthermore the service should throw an error if there is no configuration service variable set, and this also doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, any questions about this?
And it's interesting that we did not, or that it came up now, or in which I mean, the problem occurs when or does there actually a problem occur?
Yes.
Problem occurs if you would like to use the environment variable and assume that this environment variable can be used to define the configuration service
Okay.
here. Then,
yeah, understand.
I mean, it's not a critical bug, but it certainly has to be fixed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thomas, would you like to do it? I can review it.
I'm not sure if this will, if I get through it next week, but I can try to do this. Yes.
Cool, thank you.
Cool, thanks. TH. Okay. And then we have, I think we discussed this one also last time. It's about the environment screen, where the next step is to show which services are out of sync, meaning that when we compare, for example, a dev environment with a staging environment, and dev has already a new version of a service deployed, then there should be an indicator showing that the staging stage is out of sync compared to the dev environment. Ermin, I have actually a question regarding this issue. Yep. I've written it down here, and I think we can also discuss it now in this meeting. What do you think? Is it that much work to also provide the indicators for the problem and the failed evaluations? Because to be honest, when we just show the out of sync symbol and indicator, then it looks like there is something missing. And in the future, we want to show also these two indicators there. And what do you think? What's your estimation?
Yeah, I think that should be possible to display those as well, since we already have the problems highlighted in the services screen.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would also do that in one task, so all together.
Okay, yep. This was also my thought about that. Cool.
Yeah, let's have that in that issue. But since I already have 4 issues for the next week, and as we already heard, the next community meeting is on Wednesday again, I don't think that I will have time, or I don't think that I will get so far to do that one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, okay, yeah, that's fine. Just then we leave it in the backlog.
Yeah.
And I think the same is true for the next one. It's about highlighting the selected SLO in the heat map. It's also a bridge issue, and I think we'll leave it there as well, right? Okay. Then I still want to discuss two issues, 2 or 3. the next one is testing and platform integration test for manual approval use case. I have written, or I have here provided a test matrix of all the combinations of the approval strategy, and I have also written down a concrete test scenario, but I think I explained it last time. Am I right? Yeah. Has someone time to tackle that one? Okay, it's silent. I take it for a no. Yeah, as the next week is really short. I think, yeah, we leave it where it is. And still, I want to bring up two issues that are related to the self-healing use case. The first one is about extracting the implementation of the feature toggling mechanism that is currently part of the remediation service. Is extracting it from the remediation service and implementing it in an unleash service, which will then be part of the Keptn Contrib organization. Yeah, this is the task for that issue.
Here, I would like to mention that we already have defined the events for the actions in order to trigger this unleash service. So I will also add here a comment on the issue to the
that
link.
Would be great. Yeah. Yeah, that would be great. Just to reference the specification. And yeah, here it's written down, and the tasks itself would be to use the Keptn service template, which is provided for the Go programming language, and based on this template, then set up a Keptn Unleash project, also with Travis CI integration. And then actually it's all about moving one function from the Keptn remediation service to the new service. Additionally, there is also an environment variable in the remediation service that can be removed because there is no need for this environment variable anymore. And here I have written down also on which events this service should react on and how to respond. The ultimate goal of this task is to have an unleash service which is available and released in version 0.0.1 and can be deployed on any Keptn installation. This would also be a very nice task for getting familiar with writing your own Keptn service, as the functionality is there and the template is there, as well as the events are declared. That is actually a very nice task for getting started writing your own service.
I would like
Andreas,
I would like to mention that we already have a repository which is called Unleash Service, and it's contained in the Keptn Contrib. So I guess here we have to do some refactoring too.
I don't think there's code in that repository. I think this is completely empty or only has a README.
The develop branch contains code.
Yeah, I don't.
Branch.
Okay, not sure what's in there, but we should not refactor that one, to be honest. I think that code is really old.
But yeah, I would like to look into this task. I might not be finished 100% until the next community meeting because I'm on vacation until Tuesday, but I should get pretty far nonetheless. So I would like to start it at least.
Thanks, Florian. Cool. And has someone some time left over? Otherwise, I would skip explaining the next issue.
I think the time is very at the end of the meeting, so maybe
that's
we can.
True too.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a lot of things currently assigned. I think we are good to go for the next week. That's perfectly fine. Brings me now back to, we did the backlog refinement for the next sprint and also the planning part. Then we have two bullet points opened. There is the announcement that the next community meeting is also on a Wednesday. It's on May 27th. We moved it also from a Thursday to a Wednesday. The same is true for the community meeting on June 11. This has been moved to June 10th. And last but not least, one additional info that Jürgen wrote a blog post about using promisers or scaling issues when you're using promisers in an organization. This one is already published on Medium. Take a look on the blog post, read it, and learn more about promisers and how Keptn can tackle situations where promisers is used, and Keptn also plays an important role there. All right, some additional remarks or some open questions?
If you're watching this on YouTube afterwards, there is always the good first issues. I just want to mention that again. It's on the top of the community meeting notes. If you can scroll up, there's a link to the good first issues. So if you just want to get familiar with Keptn or with writing code in Keptn, just look at these. And yeah, all contributions are obviously welcome.
Always welcome, right. Okay, when there are no further questions, then I will now stop recording and say thank you very much for participating and contributing, and see you next time. Don't forget, it's on Wednesday next time.
All right. Thanks.
All right.
Have a nice evening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.